بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا، وأنت تجعل الحزن إن شئت سهلا. يقول رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم: إنما الأعمال بالنيات. اللهم ارزقنا الإخلاص في النية والقول والعمل. We praise Allah, we thank Him, we ask Him for forgiveness, for mercy and for guidance, and to raise the rank of our dearest Prophet and Master and Leader Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Welcome to the second slide of the series of ليس كمثله شيء. And we did give yesterday the first slide out and we explained it, and inshallah ta'ala we will give the second slide. And you notice there on the screen there's always the numbers next to the title, the Islamic Creed 5-8. This signals the number of lines, so we've got line number 5, 6, 7 and 8. And we're going to start off by reading the lines. And for those of you who want to memorize it, it's a wonderful thing to be able to remember because it rhymes nicely, and to teach to your children. Now, I want to explain something very quickly. I'm not going to take too long. We're trying to make this into something really interactive, and eventually you will be starting to see, inshallah ta'ala, OneDrive links. And these OneDrive links will have all the material that you're seeing on the screen. For those of you who finish completely, I'm thinking of doing some sort of way where we can assess those of you who have memorized, inshallah ta'ala, all the English words and understood them, and as well those who have retained the evidence, the ones that we give you as resources to your right, and then we can issue you with just some form of paper that says that you've received all this information, inshallah. We will talk about that, inshallah ta'ala, in future lessons. But to get on with this, let's start the Islamic Creed, slide number 2. It's going to be a short lesson. It goes: Islam is to believe God is one, without any partner or need. God exists before time begun, and before space indeed. All of us, the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, who are the Ash'a'ira, believe in the oneness of God. We believe that Allah has no partners, no associates, and we also believe that Allah is not attributed with needs. In fact, He is attributed with non-neediness of others, and that God subhanahu wa ta'ala created the earth, God created the skies, God created man, God created the angels, God created the trees and the seas, God created the souls and the jinn, God created the air and the clouds, God created the rains, God created everything, including time and space. So they do not apply to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they are not attributes of Allah. Allah is clear from being attributed from any of these. These do not befit Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In fact, they are physicalities, and these physicalities, they denote that we are talking about creation. So every time we bring in the conversation a concept of the physical, it actually serves as the genetic makeup and DNA of what is a creation. So if you want to define a creation, you look at these matters which are all the physical: need, space, time, size, condition, direction, state of being, mass, tangible, non-tangible. All of these in the physical realm, they belong to the set of principle that dictates and tells what a creation is, and therefore cannot be attributed to God. Why? Because the moment anyone does that, they attribute them to God they attribute them to God, they are actually applying the principles that through which we conceive in our minds what is a creation to the creator. In other words, what they're doing is they are bounding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with attributes of the creations, and in effect in their minds believing that he is created because they've applied the created onto him subhanahu wa ta'ala, albeit he created it all and it does not apply to him in its collective sphere of things. No matter what you think about the shapes and the forms and everything to do with the physical and the created, they cannot apply to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the difference between the believers properly in Allah who serve the message of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, who are in line with the message of our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, and those others who are not. And that's very, very important. So to prove this, that Allah is one, Allah Ta'ala said in the Quran, I told you this ayah yesterday, La ilaha illa ana fa'budun. In this ayah we know that Allah is the only one deserving of worship. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, وَإِلَهُكُمْ إِلَهٌ وَاحِدٌ, which means Allah is attributed with oneness, and this comes in the first line. Islam is to believe God is one. So we believe that he is one and he has no partners and has no needs. Allah has no needs, does not need any of the creations. There is only one God who is deserving of worship, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then when we come to explain the other two lines, God exists before time began and before space indeed, and it rhymes with the first two lines. Islam is to believe God is one without any partner or need. God exists before time began and before space indeed. When we look at the last two lines, we remember a lot of the things that the scholars of Islam, and they also came in the ayah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has no beginning and has no end. Allah exists eternally before time existed, before space existed. And these two existed with the creation starting. When the creation started, by their start, space began as well. So there was no space before Allah created it. And that's why we say Allah exists without a space, and that space is a matter that it's only applied to the creations from its attributes. The attributes of the creations is to be spaced and to be in a space, in a location, to have a locality, a locale. We say locale as well in English, but it does not apply to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this also comes in the Quran. Allah Ta'ala says, هو الأول والآخر والظاهر والباطن. And in the hadith, as related by Al-Imam al-Bayhaqi, he said, أنت الأول. He explained the meaning of Al-Awwal. فليس قبلك شيء. Nothing existed before you, Allah. وأنت الآخر فليس بعدك شيء. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is everlasting. His existence is everlasting. It is an attribute that Allah ta'ala deserves and is due to him. And people may argue here, but there are other things that are everlasting. Yes, but not by virtue of their essence and basic state of being. By the virtue of their state of being, they accept the end as they were not before, and then they came from non-existence into existence. They also accept the end. But if they are everlasting, it's because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala willed for them their everlastingness. And that's the meaning of this hadith, which explains the ayah. So in this sense, there is no awwal other than Allah. In this sense, there is no akhir other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which means the one deserving of everlastingness. It's only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who was not preceded by non-existence for non-existence to reapply to him. But by virtue of the way we are set up as creations, we accept nullification, annihilation. But if al-mu'mins are everlasting in Al-Jannah, the believers, it is because Allah willed for them that to happen. If the ruh, the soul, is everlasting, it's because Allah willed for it to be everlasting. If the Arish is everlasting, it's because Allah willed for it to be everlasting. But all these, and even the people of Al-Jannah, even Al-Jannah itself, even hellfire, they are all created. By virtue of their being, they classify as creations and they accept nullification and annihilation and end, but they don't end because Allah willed for them. So we may say Al-Jannah is everlasting, we may say Allah is everlasting, but there is a difference in the way we explain them because we do not apply to Allah what applies to the creations. So there you've got it. This is the lesson for tonight. I'm trying to keep it short and simple and not to go overboard with the timing. And we are sticking to about 10 to 15 minutes. And you've got the resources to the right hand side. And there are things that I may not have mentioned, such as the saying of the Prophet ﷺ, who said, "La fikrata fil Rabb," meaning you do not apply that which you can bring about from the bank of thoughts. And this bank of thoughts is made from your experience and engagement with the physical, and take thoughts from that and then apply them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. La fikrata fil Rabb. You do not do that. If you want to think and you want to apply the thought processing, which is a bank of experiences all to do with the physical, you can only apply it to the physical. So we don't take the sitting and applying to Allah. We don't take the resting and apply it to Allah. We don't take the sizing and applying to Allah and apply it to Allah. We don't take the shapes and apply them to Allah, because all these are our experiences in the way we understand the world, we quantify the world, we verify the world, we identify the world, and all that is a no-no to apply to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We cannot do that, and certainly Islam tells us not to do that. This is the creed of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. This is the creed of the people who want to be in line with the creed of our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, and all the prophets before our Prophet, and the angels before them, and the religion that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts from his slaves. There you've got it. I know that our viewers are not many because there are so many lessons going around, but I'm hoping that each and every one of you shares this. These lessons are different in the way that we present the material in front of you to see, and as well presenting the resources on the right hand side. And I'm not fazed about the current views that we have now, but what I want from each and every one of you to actually share it so that we can spread the right aqidah. And what is different here is that you've got you've got material there that you can actually use with your children and for yourself, and to memorize those, and this becomes like the set of guidelines and rules that are rhymed in such a way that we can easily memorize them and remember if we're teaching, or we need to fall back on a piece of information, that we can remember it, because it's easier to remember rhymes than to remember usual normal current discourse, long discourse in a text form. This is why I endeavored to write these and make it easy for all of us, because there are a lot of us now in the English-speaking countries, and we need these resources and this material. So please do me a favor. I would love to see that, and for yourselves as well, to earn rewards if you do it with the right intention, and spread the word and make sure that you share. Don't just press your finger on the one share. If you can share it to 100, do it. If you can share it to 1,000, do it. Do not leave this matter. Now, our dawah is in a form and an avenue where technology is involved. Well, we have to use it, and using it means that I'm going to share it to as many people as possible. Do your part, do that. Lillahi Azza wa Jal. I don't want anything from this except the rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah make my niyyah and yours honest and sincere, to wanting only the reward and the approval from him subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Thank you very much for being with us tonight, and let's see your shares and how you're going to distribute this material to everyone out there. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.